So this, I thought, was a good place to start. As you can see from the table in the bottom left, we are top. We've won the Premier League. I'll show some of the other things that we've won in a minute. Built a pretty good team. You may notice, looking at the overview there, that it wasn't just the Premier League we won. You'll notice that this game's a Champions League final where we beat Barcelona 1-0. Interesting stadium name, Koki Kanamori Stadium. So that was the chairman that came in, gave us a bit of a boost in terms of money, and decided to name the stadium after himself. But yeah, I thought I'd show you around. Played a lot of games, over 1,000 games during my time as manager of Bristol Rovers. So let's start with a little bit of history. So you can see there, right back at the beginning, the 2022-23 season. So this was in real life. Bristol Rovers finished 17th. 7th place was my first season here. And then won League One in 24-25, back-to-back promotions after winning the Championship, but then got relegated, finishing bottom of the Premier League. Kind of established ourselves as a mid-table Championship club before going back up in 2031. And then kind of up and down mid-table before we kind of broke in as a top 4 Champions League club in 2039, and then back-to-back titles in 41-42 and then 42-43, and then also the title in 43-44 that hasn't updated on here yet. We got that Champions League run that we'll have a look at later. We've got an FA Cup win as well, Super Cup, 2 Europa Leagues, and then the titles, the Sky Bet Championship that we won. If we have a look at that Champions League, then I can show you the Champions League run that we went on. So didn't finish in the top 8. I did actually in my first year in the Champions League win 8 of 8, but not in this year. So we went to the knockout playoff round where we hammered Porto. Round of 16, beat Man United. Quarter-final, beat Atletico Madrid in a close game. Semi-final, absolutely hammered Juventus before beating Barcelona in the final. This was the final. I'll introduce you to some of the players. We had a 40th minute red card, so we're very much parking the bus. We'll see some of the players a little bit later on, but on the bus to get the result that we got. As I said, I'll introduce you to the team a little bit later on, but this was the goal very early. Ball across, and then Cho, who was quite an influential player in this save, scored what ended up being the winner. So let's have a look at. We'll go back. We looked at the Champions League. It was treble, so the Premier League, the Champions League, and the FA Cup, where we beat Everton 3-1 in the final. Let's have a look at the goals in this one. You'll notice Kyle Collins hasn't got a great disciplinary record. Again, another one of the players I'll introduce you to later. And we were not only 1-0 down, but Everton missed a penalty. So these are the goals in this one. So this Everton side aren't a bad team, but they're certainly not Premier League title challengers. We'd gone fairly aggressive, having missed a penalty. A stunner from Thibaut there. But yeah, we were playing fairly aggressively. And at this point, having been 1-0 down, awful mistake by the goalkeeper for Marcos to put us ahead, 2-1 up. And then the goal that sealed it. Mellow header at the back post to win us the FA Cup. Now, as for a bit more about the club that I was able to build, I'll show you the current team. So this is the current squad. You'll see some wages, some pretty high wages for Petrenko, who was kind of a defender that could play anywhere. This would have been the team for the Champions League final. So Leon Hickey in goal. I do like to try and get as many British players as I can to try and keep it as realistic, but Leon Hickey here was a reasonably new sign-in from Rangers for 14.5 million. All that many games in this season. Our first choice goalkeeper was Mauricio Vergara. He played pretty much the whole of the Premier League campaign. Again, a fairly recent signing for 102 million. Pretty good match rating. Signing from Atletico Madrid. Let's put him back up. Not hugely valuable because he is 35 now, Uruguayan. 119 caps for Uruguay, so a pretty good player. As for the defenders, so Orlandi had a long career with me. Italian, 53 caps and 5 goals. He was signed in 35-36, so we were an established Premier League club at that point, with 27 million from Napoli. A fairly regular starter, a fairly useful player. Petrenko was the other big signing, the fairly expensive signing. It was on a lot of money. I think he had quite a few injuries, although he did play most of the last 2 seasons, 195 million. So that shows you the kind of money that we're making. Ukrainian went from Kiev to PSG, and then I picked him up. In terms of the other players that you would have seen, Nduka was quite a big signing, a Nigerian. We signed him from Leipzig for 60 million. As you can see, another regular starter. Did have a couple of seasons where he wasn't playing quite so regularly. He was kind of a player that I bought in and developed over time. There was another left back, I'm sure, that played a lot of games. I wonder if I can find who that was. If I sort by ability, that might show me. So Mello was quite involved. I don't think Mello played. Oh yeah, quite a few games. I think so. I think it was Mello that was showing that spot with him. Thibaut was the other one. So Thibaut played as a left winger in that final. You saw he was quite influential in the FA Cup final. We'll come to him in a minute. Now Kyle Collins again was a player that I signed fairly early on. For 40 million in 36-37. So again, we were a Premier League club signed from Norwich. He was in and out. He was never a player that got particularly high star ratings, but 16 caps for England as a holding midfielder was always fairly reliable. I think all teams need those kind of players. McCartney was kind of the young star that we signed to develop. I think he came from Man United. Yeah, Avaya spent some time on loan at Norwich. Again, I didn't always play 2 holding midfielders, but he was the other one that played in there when I did. Cho was one of the big stars of that Champions League final. Winger that came from Ulsan, 2.2 million was an unbelievable price to get him for. Again, he went on to be such a top player for me. Thibaut was a slightly more recent signing, 24, again, someone that's had plenty of room to develop. Came on a free from Monaco, again, another unbelievable signing. Was good in that Champions League final as well. And then up front, we had Martinez. Now, might get a bit confusing. There is another Martinez I'll introduce you to in a minute. This was Leandro Martinez, who came from Penarol. Again, I had some quite good scouting set up in South America. A couple of Uruguayans in the team. Again, quite an influential player who came in 37-38 season. Sousa was a fairly young star that we picked up from Brazil. Again, a fairly cheap fee, 10.5 million. Played fairly regularly. In terms of those players that were only on the bench, Marcos spent a long time at the club. Came in 37-38, paid 175 million for him. Salmon was one of the star English players, produced by us. Jordan Salmon. Not often did that happen because it took a while to get the youth facilities up to a good point, but certainly a really important player by the time we kind of won the treble. Now Ruben Leyland has got an important 162 caps at England, signed him in 34, then sold him to Man City for 160 before loaning him back this season. So he was quite an important player as we built into an established Premier League club. As you can see, quite a few players are on loan. We built quite a good kind of youth development system. But I think really that's all of the stars that are worth introducing you to. I can also take you to, if we go back to the club and we have a look at the best 11. So a bit strange Kyle Collins playing. Bisogno was an Italian goalkeeper that played for us a lot, 5 seasons there, signed fairly cheaply from Lazio before getting 56 million, making 30 million from him. When he went off to Barcelona, but played pretty much every game after we signed. Jean Pereira and Claudio Moreira, I think it's Celso Moreira, were the centre-halves for a long time. So I showed you Jean Pereira, who played in that Champions League final, but Celso Moreira, I showed you John Pereira, but Celso Moreira was his partner. Again, signed fairly cheap from Atletico Mineiro. Made a big profit on him when we sold him to Real Madrid in order to improve the team. Interestingly, ended up playing as a left-back for them. Harry Amas is a real-life name that some of you might recognise. A youngster currently at Manchester. Signed him for 75 million, 34-35. So again, at the point where we were a Premier League club, he ended up going off to Italy for 18 million and finished his career in Qatar. I think he had a reasonable success with England. Only 10 games, obviously not worth much now, being 37, but certainly had a good career with us. Kovic was another player that we sold fairly late on, signed him fairly early as a Premier League club in 31-32 for 9 million from Partizan. 36.5 million we sold him to PSG in this season. 120 games for Serbia, so a really important player from them. Carlos Tay was a holding midfielder that we used. He's ended up at Barcelona and now signed in 36-37. Turned £1 million profit on him, but again, an important player in some of those Premier League wins, and one that some of you might find quite funny. Alex Scott is obviously a really good player, came through with Bristol City, which when I saw he was available, I thought it was quite funny given the players that they've stolen from us over the years. But 401 games for Bristol Rovers, 44 goals, was quite an important player in our rise up the leagues. Signed in 2027. Connor Taylor makes the best ever team. Sad to see him go, but 313 appearances. Spent 20 years at Rovers before moving off to Shanghai to finish his career in China. Orlandi was a fullback that had a really good career. I've shown you him already. Oh, maybe we didn't. I'll show you him again quickly if we didn't already. But yeah, we did, because he was the lad that was signed from Napoli that ended up playing. Now, definitely the star player of the save, Jonathan Martinez. So easily confused with the other Martinez that we signed, but this Jonathan Martinez was Colombian. We signed him really early on in our first season in the Premier League, 26-27 for free from Junior in Colombia. He stayed with us when we got ready to the Championship and was definitely the star player then. Took us back to the Premier League, was captain for a long time as well. Eventually decided he wanted to move on when we had too much competition for places, but went off to Milan for 40 million. To Atletico Madrid now. We signed him so young that he's still playing at 35, 110 caps for Colombia. He was definitely one of the stars of the save, as was Dierix, a Belgian that we signed in 36-37 from West Ham for 75 million. Didn't turn anything on him, sold him in the end for 14 million, but he had a couple of really good seasons as we established ourselves as one of the top Premier League clubs. As well earlier on. Cho didn't quite make the best 11 for the save. Jordan Salmon had a couple of spells with us, but that was the best 11. I can take you all the way back to that first team where we used Marquis. Some of you remember Brandon Aguilera, Luke Freeman we brought in, Giovanni Brown was in this team. You see Connor Taylor started his career here. Converted Josh Grant to a centre-half, and yet he had quite a good spell there. You'll see quite a lot of changes as we went on. Those of you that play a lot of Football Manager will recognise Tyrese John Jules, a free agent that is usually quite a good pickup. Kemar Roof. Luke Hall established himself in this season. It's quite funny that I signed Luke Southwood back in, this would have been 2024, and it turned out by 20-25 years a player for us in real life. Todd Kane, Howie Toffolo, players that have played at the top, in the top tiers of English football. You'll notice as well, Luke Thomas, we were able to keep in the team for quite a while, playing on that right wing there. Josh Grant moving up to be a holding midfielder. I'll flip through these fairly quickly. Ted and Mengi plays for Luton, or has been at Luton. I signed James McAtee in this season, so this was one of our, I think this might have been our first Premier League season. We had James McAtee, Josh Grant making it all the way up to the Premier League. I think those of us that saw him play in real life know probably wasn't good enough to do that. You can see we signed Jonathan Martinez here for our first season back in the Championship. But Norton Cuffy didn't quite develop in this save as he has in real life. But Northern Irishman Shay Charles was in this team. Lascelles we signed. Miguel Aziz. This was kind of seeing Alex Scott become a regular. Marcus Tavernier currently at Bournemouth in real life. Brendan Aronson is currently at Leeds in real life. You may also notice Elliot Anderson. He was definitely one I had to sign. Bought him back from Newcastle after one season there. He played 4 years with us, again before heading off to Shanghai Port, where we joined Connor Taylor. 2 Scottish appearances. I'm kind of making this video just after he's been called up to the full England squad for the first time. So hopefully he can establish himself as an English international in real life. Dane Scarlett of Spurs was in this team as well. Harry Winks we brought in near the end of his career here to play in midfield. Elliot Anderson established himself more in this season. James Trafford became our first choice goalkeeper at the top of the Championship. Again, he's in the England squad that's just been announced. Lewis Hall we signed as well. He's someone that has been in recent England squads. A manager by this point in the save. He ends up going off to Crystal Palace. As you can see here, ended up in China as well. Quite a few of our players ended up in China. Signed from £675,000 from Newcastle. As a player came in, Japhet Tanganga, Will Hughes we had for a couple of seasons. Hello everyone, so this is probably going to be the first video that a lot of you watch on this channel. I basically just wanted to find a way to show off the success that I'd had playing Football Manager. Matthew Cox is one that most Rovers fans will recognise. We had him in real life on loan from Brentford, signing for £5 million from Everton before he went off to Liverpool. And he played for us for a few years. Adam Iger came in for this season. Tyler Adams, currently of Leeds. Here you'll notice the Pereira and Moreira partnership. And Christopher Larkin was quite an important player for us as well. You know, it's like the massive profit we made. He was an England international at that point, signed from Hull, went off to Spurs. I go back to his attribute, 66 caps, 44 goals. Whether he breaks Harry Kane's record in this save, we will never know. To keep that going, Graham Gray was an England international that we signed, ended up at Juventus, bought him in from Newcastle for 50 million and didn't lose any money there. Didn't play that regularly for us, but did end up getting 13 caps for England. Nearly back to the time of this save here. There's not really a huge amount of other stars to show you. Alex Scott, you see here, played right into his late 30s with us. Didn't play all that often. Xavi Simons we signed near the end of his career as well. Picked him up from Atletico Madrid and he played with us for a couple of years as a rotation option. And then this was kind of the team that took us to those Premier League titles. So a lot of players now that you would have already seen. Petrenko, our big signing, came in here. Cho slipped out of the team for a while before coming back in 43-44. and then that was the team that finished the season. We'll stop there for today. I hope you enjoyed this first video on the channel. I've done something similar with FC25 and Evolutions, creating the best possible Bristol Rovers team. So keep an eye out for that on the channel coming soon. If you enjoyed what you've seen, please do subscribe. There'll be more videos coming, particularly as we move into the new games, Football Manager and FC26. Please leave a like and drop a comment if there's anything else you would like to see from this save. Thanks everyone.